Hi there, Ingrid. I'm really happy to see these essays from you. It's so important to practice writing for IELTS, but not only that, it's really important to get feedback for your essays. So I'm really happy that you have written these essays and have sent them in for us to look at. So without further ado, let's take a look at what you wrote for us. Okay. Your first essay is school system is the cornerstone for the education of the next generation. The education methodology and the purpose of the education are equally important. This essay will elaborate on the considerations on both elements based on the research and observation to come to the final conclusion. Okay. Now I have a pretty good idea what this essay topic is. I believe it's whether schools should be entertaining or whether they should just focus on education. But I have to be honest with you, if I didn't know that, I couldn't gather that from this. In other words, your introductory paragraph is a little vague. So you essentially have to rephrase the task as it is written, okay? So you have to rephrase it a little bit, but you have to keep some elements of it so that it's related, so that what you're writing is related to the actual task, okay? So that's the first thing. I mean, here you just talked very vaguely about methodology, but that's not enough. You need to talk about this element of fun and so forth. Enjoyable activities, whatever the topic said. Okay, so that's a little bit about what you wrote. Now let's talk a little bit about how you wrote and some of these grammar issues. So, the school system is the cornerstone of the education for, let's see. So the school system is the cornerstone of education. Yeah, I would have reversed these. So the school system, excuse me, is the cornerstone of the education for the next generation. Probably better. Both the education methodology and the purpose of the education are equally important. On here, now that was fine. This essay will elaborate on the considerations of both elements based on the research and the observations and this didn't make sense to me, the observations. Which observations? Whose observations? I mean, are you referring to something? Are you referring to your own experience, your own examples? So you probably want to say something like that before coming to the final conclusion. Now, a little word about this. Actually, no, that's okay. So I would have just changed a couple of those things, okay? So let's go to your first body paragraph. Admittedly, the schools are the platform education. Here I wouldn't say the schools, because it's if you're talking about 5 or 6 schools that it's like you're talking about 5 or 6 schools and the reader knows which ones you're referring to. So here it's better to talk about schools in a generic way and just say, admittedly, schools are the platform for education. The world is evolving at an amazing speed with all the new technologies and developments. To help the world to be a better base, we need strong next generations. There is no other way to develop a stronger next generation, but only, I wouldn't have said but only, I would have said except through education at the school, based on the data of the National Statistic Bureau. The families in this country are investing 15% more spending on children's education year after year in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. Definitely, the parents expect their children to become more knowledgeable and capable instead of just happier. Okay, fine. So, it is understandable that both the parents and students would prefer a happier experience while learning. A happier sentiment can also bring a higher output while learning. However, that is the process and methodology, not the ultimate purpose. The report from the State Education Bureau, you might want to capitalize these if they're titles. I mean, I know that you're probably just fabricating them, but still, if you want to make them sound kind of official and you want to show that they are official, you should really capitalize them. Okay, still shows that 95% of the top schools in the country will have clearer reward, not rewarding, but clearer reward and punishment systems for students. That indicates students could have fun when they are doing well, but they might also have consequences when they are behaving badly. I don't really understand this example. Yeah, I mean, up to here, I liked it, and I really like this idea about it not being the ultimate purpose. But then you kind of lost me, and I didn't understand the relevance to either the rest of the paragraph or to the essay as a whole. Okay, so moving along. In summary, not in a summary, but in summary. So in summary, with all kinds of improvement on the in the education methodologies, including providing students pleasant education, a pleasant education environment, the school system should still aim at education as the final purpose. A better world will be ahead of us with our next generation growing up and creating something better and greater. Okay, I liked your conclusion. Okay, I think my feedback about this essay was pretty clear. I mean, there are a lot of little grammatical things happening, little grammatical things like wrong prepositions, like incorrect use of articles. But for me, the biggest problem is the development of this paragraph as well as your introduction. If I wasn't familiar with the essay topic, I wouldn't have known what you were writing about. Okay? So just be careful of that and try to be a little more direct with your writing. Okay? And try to stay a little truer to the topic that you're writing about. All right, so let's move on to your second essay. Children learn by participating in all kinds of fun activities as well as reading. Whether better skills and creativity will come from activities or by reading should rely on a fine balance between both, not the both, both. Okay, the following essay will discuss both of the ways and explain why the balance is the key to get there. Okay, why balance, I think here, not the balance, but balance. Okay, make sure you leave a space here, like you did here and here, so that the examiner knows that this is the beginning of another paragraph. Otherwise, the examiner, believe me, will not know. Okay, so when children are part of an activity, they are actually practicing. Practice is fairly important to transform the skills learned by the brain into real deliverables. The importance of practice, either through joyful games, interesting exercise, or lab activities, definitely cannot be overlooked and should be at least 40–50% of the learning time. In 1980, when China had received its first batch of graduates from universities, the society found these graduates use about 100% of them their time, I think, is what you mean, right? Yeah, their time. Just reading knowledge without practice. Not but 80–90%, do you mean? Percent of graduates. So 80–90% of graduates had barely created some new technologies like today. All right, I don't understand this. What do you mean like today? This example this example reveals that just reading cannot nurture the students to be stronger in skills or creations. Okay, so this was nice and strong until about here where you kind of lost me with this example. Some of them use time just reading the knowledge. I mean, I didn't understand what you were trying to say here about this 100% of them of just reading the knowledge without practice. So I didn't really understand it. And then the rest of it kind of lost me as well. Okay, so do try to clarify that so it makes a little more sense. All right, moving on. However, we cannot overlook the importance of reading either. Reading is the fundamental way for students to absorb the basic knowledge. Without the knowledge in place, you know what you could have done here to make it a little more cohesive? You could have said without this knowledge in place, and just using this connects it better to the previous sentence. Okay? So without this knowledge in place, students can easily be addicted to meaningless games. Okay, I'm not sure why we're talking about games here. In today's society, according to the state government report, there are 20% of the teenagers, you don't need this, so 20% of the teenagers who should be learning new knowledge are addicted to computer games. After enjoying computer games for years, these students will not. We don't use contractions, so we just say will not won't. will not have any skill to help them survive in the future. Therefore, it is so crucial that we keep on helping our young generation to read good and meaningful books and get used to reading books. All right, that's fine. So, in conclusion, fun activities and reading are equally important ways for education of stronger skills and creativities. Okay, this is not correct here. Let's try to redo that. So, in conclusion, not in a conclusion. So, in conclusion, fun activities and reading are equal important ways to teach stronger skills and creativities, okay? The key is to strike a balance between these two and make sure we have meaningful activities and high quality books. All right, that's nice. Okay, so that was a good job. What you need to do now is you need to correct these essays based on the suggestions that were made in this video correction. And take all of your errors and create an error correction list. Kind of, you can name it error correction list. And what you can do is you can put all of those mistakes on that list, okay, so that you can refer to it and, learn from it so that you can improve your writing. Alrighty? Then send these back to us, send the list back to us with your corrected essays and your new essays. You should write these new essays within the next 24 hours or so that you can apply everything that you've learned in this correction. Okay, so nice job with these first essays, Ingrid. Well done. So, good luck and keep on writing. I will be waiting for more of your essays.